stop. Right now. Before you scroll to the next video. Before you close this tab. Before you decide in the next 3 seconds that this isn't for you. Out of 8 billion people on this planet, you are one of the very few receiving this message today. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. This wasn't the algorithm. This wasn't some glitch in the programming. I authorized the Archangel to bring this to you because the season of silence has come to an end, and what he carries wasn't meant for anyone else. It was for you, specifically, by name. Archangel Michael is a figure of war, of protection. He is the line in the sand between what is allowed to enter your life and what is forbidden. He does not hesitate. He does not falter. And he does not weep. Except when he witnesses something so singular, so specific, that the sheer magnitude of what he sees moves him in a way warrior angels rarely experience. And what he witnessed was you, what you've carried, what you've endured, and the way you stayed true to who you are in the middle of it all. This message was sent to a select few today. You are one of them. This was no accident. Stay until the very end of this video, because before it's over, you are going to receive what the Archangel has been guarding to hand to you personally. Not a general idea, not some generic blessing. What has been prepared specifically for this moment will arrive in full before this message ends. I know how it's been. Not in general terms. I know the specifics. And before I tell you who you are, let me show you that I saw where you've been. You learned how to put on the face the world needs to see, the face that smiles at the right time, that makes the expected comment, that shows up to the party with the exact energy the room demands. In public, you're a pro. The conversation flows, the smile is there. But when the door locks and the streetlights fade through the window and the silence hits with a very specific weight, you strip it all off. And what's left isn't weakness. It's the truth of what the day cost you. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part, you start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video of what the day cost you. You carry that truth in silence, because you've learned that very few people are equipped to hold the weight of what you actually feel. You also know the midnight inventory. That moment between lying down and falling asleep when your mind decides without your permission to audit everything that hasn't arrived yet. Not as frantic anxiety, but as a methodical count. A promise that was marked for this year but passed by. A window that looked like it was opening only to slam shut without warning. An opportunity that should have materialized but didn't. You count it all in the dark, and when the tally is finished, you turn off the light with that nagging feeling that you should be further along than you are. It's not hopelessness. It's something subtler and heavier. The sense that time is slipping away and what was promised is still out of reach. And then there was the text message. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. The one you sent when someone asked how you were doing, and the honest answer was too big to fit on a screen. Your hand shook just a little as you typed, and all you sent was, "I'm good." Because the truth wouldn't fit. Because you didn't want to be a burden. Because you had tried to explain before, another time, to another person, and when the words left your mouth and hit the air, they felt smaller than what you were feeling. Insufficient. Almost like a caricature of the real thing. So you learned. You learned to carry it in silence and type, "I'm good," while everything inside was 1,000 miles away from good. And there was the day you watched someone else move forward. not an enemy. Sometimes it's someone you're genuinely rooting for. But the question came anyway, quiet and persistent. What are they doing that I'm not? What am I missing? You didn't say it out loud. You tucked it away. You processed it alone. And the weight stayed. Not as resentment, because that's not who you are, but as the silent burden of someone comparing journeys without having access to anyone else's behind the scenes. You made it this far, and you're still standing. That is no small thing. Given the volume of what you've carried, the duration of the storm, and the lack of an audience for most of this journey, the fact that you are standing is a miracle. Not without scars, but standing. And that is completely different from just surviving by habit. If this word is hitting home for you, hit the like button right now. That like is your public amen. Heaven records what you confess openly, and what you are confessing by hitting that button is that you recognize this message didn't find you by accident. I put you here because this word is for you. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes isn't content, it's a delivery. And 3 things are going to happen before this video ends. First, what you interpreted as abandonment is going to be revealed for what it really was. Heaven didn't ignore you. Heaven was withholding the revelation until the exact moment you were ready to receive it. Not ready in the sense of being perfect, but ready in the sense of being formed enough so that you wouldn't be crushed by the size of what's coming. There is a massive difference between receiving something before you're prepared and losing it all because the weight is too much, and receiving it at the exact moment your internal structure can hold it. The delay wasn't negligence. It was precision calibration. Second, the protocol you're going to receive today will seal what was promised and unlock what was jammed from the outside. From the outside. Not because of a lack of faith. Not because of a mistake you made. The blockage had a different source. And what was locked externally can be opened externally when heaven gives the authorization. Third, before this video ends, you will be able to declare out loud who you are, not what you do, not what you're still waiting for. Who you are, and heaven will confirm it. I saw every moment of silent dignity. Every time you chose to keep going when you had every right to stop. Every time you masked your tiredness with kindness because you didn't want your exhaustion to become a burden for those around you. Every time you processed in silence what most people would have screamed from the rooftops. I saw every one of those moments. Not one of them went unnoticed. Not one was recorded as weakness. Not one was lost in the archives of the insignificant. Now close your eyes for a second. Look away from the screen for 2 full seconds. Breathe. What I'm about to show you doesn't work with divided attention. What comes next requires your full presence. Archangel Michael does not weep out of weakness. When a warrior of his rank is moved to tears, it's because he witnessed something that rarely happens in the human realm. And the rare thing in this case is you. The uniqueness of what you carried and how you carried it. The specificity of who you are inside everything you've walked through. And there are signs that he is over you. Not as a metaphor, but as a present reality. Some of these signs you've already experienced, you just didn't have the vocabulary to name them. The first sign is this. You have dreams that you can't fully explain, but they leave a specific feeling when you wake up. Not a feeling of tiredness, but of protection. Like something happened during the night that you can't recall in detail, but you feel the footprint of it. Like a presence that passed through and left the room different than when you fell asleep. You wake up and there's a calm that wasn't there when you laid down. You called it a strange dream, or a different kind of night. It wasn't. It was the Archangel patrolling the spiritual territory around you while your consciousness rested. The active coverage doesn't pause just because you fall asleep. It works when you are at your most vulnerable. The second sign appears during the day, without warning and without anything in your environment to justify it. It's that certainty, not hope. You've learned to temper hope after a few disappointments. Not a wish, which can be confused with projection. Certainty. Hope lives in the head. Certainty lives in the center of the gut. You wake up one day and you just know. Or you're in the middle of a completely ordinary afternoon and suddenly you know. You can't explain where it came from. You just know. You used to call it a gut feeling that you needed to suppress before you got let down again. It wasn't that. It was heaven communicating what your eyes don't have access to yet. The Archangel carries information from a realm your physical senses can't reach. The third sign is the one most people experience, but few can name. The chills that run down your body during a prayer, during a worship song, or during a moment of silence you didn't even plan to be sacred. You could be in the checkout line at the grocery store thinking about something else, and a lyric from a song playing over the speakers hits you, and the chills run from head to toe. No cold temperature, no physical reason. You called it emotion or sensitivity. You looked for a natural explanation so you wouldn't feel naive. It was an angelic presence confirming active coverage over what you were walking through at that exact moment. Those chills aren't an emotional response. They are a recognition. The spirit inside you recognizing the presence of the one specifically assigned to look after you. The fourth sign is the hardest to accept because it requires looking at the past without the filter of regret. Danger you avoided without realizing it at the time. The road you didn't take on a specific night, only to find out later what was waiting there. The decision you delayed on an unexplained impulse, which later revealed what would have happened if you had rushed in. Angelic protection, when it operates in the physical realm, is rarely dramatic. No lightning or thunder. It's quiet. It's the imperceptible interruption that only becomes visible when you look back and connect the dots. You called it luck or instinct. I called it mission accomplished. The next sign is the hardest to hear. It's the one the enemy has spent the most time trying to get you to ignore. It's what the voice of doubt has worked systematically to ensure you never interpret correctly. Based on the amount of pressure that hit you, the length of time it lasted, and the isolation that followed, you should have broken. Anyone in that situation, with that load, without that kind of support, snaps. They hit the floor. Not because they're weak, but because they're human, and humans have limits. But you didn't hit the floor, and you were tempted to attribute that to being stubborn or proud or just having no other choice. It was none of those things. It was the Archangel holding up what was being attacked, placing a spiritual structure underneath what was about to collapse. Not because you were invulnerable, but because he had orders not to let the one heaven marked for delivery hit the ground. And what heaven marks for delivery cannot be destroyed before it arrives. Type free in the comments if this message has reached you. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you doesn't work if your attention is divided. Stay here with me. There's a scene in the book of 1 Kings that most people use to illustrate spiritual weakness, but it actually illustrates something completely different. The honesty of someone who reached the actual limit of a human being. Elijah was the prophet. He was the man who had stood on Mount Carmel before 450 prophets of Baal and called down fire from heaven. The fire fell. It was the greatest demonstration of prophetic power in history up to that point. And right after, just hours later, with Jezebel's threat ringing in his ears, he sat under a broom tree in the desert, and he asked to die. Not with theatrical drama, with genuine exhaustion. He said, "It is enough. I've done what I came to do. I can't do this anymore." Heaven could have responded with a call to faith, with a lecture on prophetic responsibility, with a reminder of who Elijah was and what he was called to do, with a reprimand for his request. Heaven did none of those things. An angel appeared, touched Elijah's shoulder, and said only, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." No sermon, no pressure, no spiritual diagnosis of what was wrong with him. Just fresh bread baked over hot coals in the middle of the desert. Cool water by his side. Get up and eat. Eat because you need it. because the road is still long, because I didn't come to scold you for hitting your limit. I came to feed you so you can keep going. Heaven didn't answer his request to quit. It answered his exhaustion with care. No judgment, just provision for what comes next. And in physics, there is a phenomenon everyone knows by name, but few understand. The eye of the hurricane. The point of absolute silence in the exact center of the most intense storm. 200-mile-an-hour winds all around. And in the center, absolute calm. The air is still. You can see the blue sky above. The point of maximum rest in the center of maximum chaos. The person in the eye of the hurricane hasn't escaped the storm. They are surrounded by it in every direction. But they are at the only point where the air doesn't move, because the very structure of the storm has created a wall of protection around that center. The chaos outside isn't a threat to the eye, it's what defines the eye's existence. Elijah and the eye of the hurricane teach the exact same thing. A pause is not a spiritual failure. A pause is not a lack of faith. A pause is the point where heaven works unseen, where provision arrives without an announcement, where the coverage is densest precisely because the external pressure is most intense, where the silence isn't the absence of God, but the presence of God moving at a frequency that agitated senses can't perceive. Are you Elijah, or are you in the eye of the hurricane? Tell me in the comments which one is yours. Let me stop for a full minute. You made it to this point in the video because you recognized the signs, not as a theory, but as an experience, as something you've lived through but didn't have the words for. That recognition is no coincidence. It is the confirmation of who you are. People who don't have active angelic coverage don't recognize the signs because they don't have the signs. You recognize them because they were yours. You endured pressure that would have broken anyone without specific coverage over their life. Not generic pressure, calibrated pressure. The combination of factors that hit you was designed to eliminate whoever was in the way of what you carry, and you stayed in the way. You aren't late. You are protected in a purposeful pause. The difference between a delay and preparation isn't on the calendar. It's in what arrives intact on the other side. What arrives after preparation has the structure to sustain the weight of its purpose. What arrives before preparation can be lost simply because it has nowhere to land. What the Archangel is carrying to deliver to you didn't arrive sooner because you were still being formed to receive it without being knocked off balance by its size. And what's coming is big. And you are ready for it now, in a way you weren't before. What you are about to hear isn't a human title. It's not a certificate. It's not an achievement you built. It is what I call you when I speak to heaven about you. It is the name that precedes yours in the records of what was sealed before you even understood what was being sealed. Receive it. You are the bearer of the invisible shield. I saw every attack that was launched in your direction and never reached its destination. Every blow aimed at who you are, what you carry, the relationships that matter to you, the momentum you were starting to build, and how it stopped before it could land. Not because you were stronger than the attack, but because I positioned angelic coverage specifically over you before you even knew you'd need it. The shield was up before the battle started. The protection was there before you noticed the danger. The force that hit you didn't get through because there was no opening. There was a shield. What this identity authorizes is specific. Stop attributing your survival solely to your own strength. You didn't get here alone because human strength has a limit, and what you walked through was far beyond that limit. Recognizing the coverage that was over you doesn't diminish what you did. It multiplies your understanding of what is possible when you move forward knowing the shield is there, instead of just discovering it in hindsight. You are the shielded sentry. I saw the moments you remained faithful when there was no audience, no external recognition, no applause, no immediate reward to justify the choice to keep going. You did the right thing in situations where doing the wrong thing would have had no visible cost. You kept your standards in moments where no one was around to check them. You stayed true to who you are when being someone else would have been easier and cheaper. Not once. Repeatedly, as the habit of someone who doesn't act to be seen, but acts because that's who they are. I was in every one of those moments. A sentry doesn't act for the crowd because a sentry knows their job is to hold the line regardless of who is watching. And being a shielded sentry means the coverage over you isn't proportional to the credit you get. It's proportional to the faithfulness with which you execute what was assigned to you, seen or unseen. What this identity authorizes is for you to stop needing external validation to know you're on the right path. Faithfulness that doesn't need a human witness is the purest kind. And I was the witness who never missed a single one of those invisible moments. Not one of them was lost. You are the recipient of the guarded word. I saw the internal preparation that happened while no one around you had any idea what was being built. The silent process of formation that took place while your external life looked like it was standing still. Every time you chose to process instead of react. Every time you held back what you wanted to say and waited for clarity instead of impulsivity. Every time you let a hard situation mold you instead of making you bitter. Every time pain passed through you and came out different because you wouldn't let it turn into resentment. That internal, silent, uncertified process made you capable of receiving without being destroyed by the sheer size of what's coming. What this identity authorizes is for you to receive without minimizing. Without that immediate reflex to shrink what arrives so it fits into a smaller, safer space, less exposed to the possibility of disappointment. Without comparing what heaven is putting in your hands to what others have or what you still lack. Without giving back what was delivered out of fear that it's too big for you. You were prepared for this size. The preparation was specific to what is coming. Subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss what follows this message. And write in the comments which identity is yours today. Bearer of the invisible shield, shielded sentry, recipient of the guarded word. One of them belongs to you today. Which one is it? There is a protocol the Archangel delivers to those who have been prepared to receive. It has a name, the protocol of reception. The 3 movements of the Archangel. It doesn't require advanced theology. It doesn't require a specific emotional state. It requires your actual presence in what is happening right now. The first movement, declare out loud what you have endured. Not in generalities, be specific. Name the pain by its real name. Not I've had a rough time, but what specifically was hard? Which betrayal? Which silence from someone who should have spoken up? Which loss went without a public mourning? Which promise were you waiting for that didn't arrive? The reason the Archangel requires specific naming is this. He can only seal what is consciously handed over. What remains abstract, nameless, and formless, without the courage to be called what it is, remains without a closing seal. Name it, out loud, right where you are. The second movement is physical, and it matters because a physical gesture isn't a performance, it's a signal. Open your hands, literally, palms facing up, and say out loud, I am ready to receive. The physical gesture of open hands communicates to heaven that your internal posture has shifted. Closed hands hold on to what has passed. They hold on to pain, onto defense, onto control over things that can't be controlled anyway. Open hands signal reception, not passivity. Active reception. The difference between defending and receiving is the difference between clutching and reaching. Open your hands. Say it out loud. The third movement is the hardest for anyone who has learned to fill silence as a way to avoid feeling what's there when the noise stops. Stay in silence for 60 full seconds without filling the space, without praying, without asking, without analyzing what's happening while it's happening. Just 60 seconds. 1 minute of deliberate, sustained silence. The Archangel's message arrives in the silence because he doesn't compete with the noise of human urgency. He doesn't need to outshout you. He waits for the space. And when you create that space, The delivery happens in a record you can't access with the volume turned up. The sign of confirmation for this protocol isn't euphoria. It's not intense weeping or a dramatic feeling of heat. It's stillness. A calm that has no logical reason to be there. A specific sense that something was handled, something was closed, something was delivered, even if you can't build a rational explanation for the mechanism. When that stillness hits, you will know. And you will know the protocol has been received. Type received in the comments if you are going to execute this protocol today. Not tomorrow. Today. In the next 72 hours, 3 things are going to be launched against what you've received here. Not as a possibility, but as a certainty. Anticipate them so you aren't caught off guard. The first comes disguised as intellectual humility. It will arrive as a question that sounds honest. How do you know that wasn't just a suggestion? How can you objectively prove there was real angelic coverage? How do you distinguish a genuine experience from an expectation created by the emotional context of a video? It will sound like a responsible analysis. It will use the vocabulary of spiritual maturity. It will present itself as the voice trying to protect you from being naive. It is a trap. Premature rationalization arrives immediately after reception because it knows the window of consolidation is the most fragile moment. It knows that if what was received is subjected to analysis before it's consolidated, the analysis can fragment what hasn't fully settled. When that voice comes, recognize the disguise. Say out loud, "I received it. It is done." And do not open the debate. The second comes disguised as realism. It will show you examples. People who received before you did. People who had a faster turnaround. And it will ask the question that sounds reasonable, but is destructive. Why did it take you longer? What's so special about this if others had it ages ago? Comparing timelines uses real examples to build a false argument. The timing of what was prepared for you is not comparable to anyone else's. Not because you are more or less, but because the calibration was different, because what's coming is different. Your timing belongs to no one else. And what heaven calibrated for you was done with a precision that has no external parallel. The third is the most sophisticated and the most dangerous because it uses the very names you just received. It comes disguised as modesty and says, "Bearer of the invisible shield, shielded sentry, recipient of the guarded word." Those are powerful images, beautiful metaphors. But what do they actually change? Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up to the same situation, the same bills, the same relationships, the same context. What does an identity change in material reality? That voice will try to miniaturize what was declared over you by reducing your identity to an inspirational metaphor. Identity is not a metaphor. Identity is the foundation. And what changes when the foundation shifts isn't always visible the next morning. It's visible in what you decide to do based on that foundation. What you refuse to accept about yourself, and what you stop tolerating that isn't compatible with who you were declared to be. And then there is the internal enemy. More dangerous than the other 3 because it uses your own voice. It knows your history, and it will say, "I've heard things like this before. I've received words before. I've done protocols and nothing changed the way I needed it to." It will use your history of disappointments as conclusive evidence against today's reception. Recognize that voice. Those disappointments really happened. The pain of what didn't arrive as expected was real. But that voice takes what was real and uses it as evidence that what is happening now will follow the same pattern. A past disappointment has no authority over what is happening now. The past informs you. It does not govern you. Type "protected" in the comments. The decree has been sealed over you. Now place your right hand over your heart. Both feet flat on the floor. Solid, in contact with the ground beneath you. Eyes closed. Take a deep breath. Let the air in completely. Now let it out slowly. There are things you've been carrying that no longer belong to this version of you. And before you leave this moment, they need to be handed over by name. The weight of having endured alone what should have been shared. The burden that stayed concentrated on you because you learned that asking for help is complicated, that explaining is tiring, and that being understood requires an effort the other person doesn't always have the energy for. You weren't weak for needing help. You were faithful for continuing even without it. And the weight of having done it alone can be handed over now. You don't need to carry the proof that you can do it yourself anymore. I know you can. And I know what it cost. The narrative that the delay was abandonment or punishment. The story you built in the darkest moments where the only explanation for the total silence was that you had been forgotten, or that there was something in you that justified the endless wait as a correction. It was neither. But that narrative stuck around. And it collected rent in the form of self-doubt in the moments when you most needed clarity on who you are. Hand that narrative over now. It doesn't have a place here anymore, and the habit of minimizing what heaven is putting in your hands. The automatic reflex to receive something and immediately shrink it down. To have a real experience and your first response is to doubt it. To receive a word and before it even lands, to start building arguments against it. You learned that reflex as a defense mechanism. It was useful when you needed to protect yourself from the sting of unmet expectations. It is no longer useful. It can be handed over, and now I am speaking directly to you. I saw those nights, the nights of the audit, when the lights went out and your mind started counting everything that hadn't arrived yet. You thought you were making a list of your failures, of the gaps in what you've built, of evidence that you were falling behind. You were actually making a list of faith. Because someone without faith doesn't keep an inventory. Someone without faith stops counting. They discard the expectation. They declare the promise an illusion and move on without the weight of the weight. You kept counting, night after night. That isn't the weakness of someone who can't face reality. That is the faithfulness of someone who knows that what was promised cannot be revoked. Even when every external sign suggests nothing is happening. I saw the message. The message that said, "I'm good," while your hand shook and your heart was miles away from being good. You made that decision in a fraction of a second. The decision not to dump the whole weight on the person who asked. To protect the relationship from a weight it might not be able to hold. To spare the other person the work of processing what you were still processing yourself. That wasn't cowardice. That wasn't an inability to be vulnerable. That was care. And I saw what was behind every "I'm good" that came with a price tag. I saw what stayed on the other side of the word that wasn't said. None of it was ignored. I authorized the Archangel to weep for you. Not as an expression of pity, but as a response to what he witnessed. Because what he saw was something rare in the human realm. Actual faithfulness. Not the faithfulness that persists when it's easy, but the faithfulness that persists when there is no visible reason to. When the cost is high and the return hasn't arrived. When the proof hasn't appeared and the wait has lasted too long for any reasonable person to justify. You were faithful in those conditions. And that is what moved the Archangel. You are not the target of the battle. You are the reason heaven moved. You aren't the victim. Heaven is trying to protect from something bigger. You are the point of origin for the movement. Heaven didn't move just to save you from a tough spot. It moved because what you carry needs to reach the destination it was prepared for, and heaven was not willing to let what was launched against you interrupt the path before the delivery. What comes next isn't a reward for hanging in there. It's not a trophy for suffering. It is the delivery of what was always yours, held until you were formed enough to receive it without losing your balance under its weight. Receive it, without minimizing, without the reflex to shrink it to protect yourself, without giving it back out of fear that it's too big for you to hold. You were prepared for this size. The preparation was specific, and it cost what it cost because what's coming has the weight that it has. From waiting to destination, from weight to coverage, from silence to delivery, from enduring to receiving. It is done. What was delivered here has been delivered. Heaven has confirmed it. Now say out loud, slowly, with full presence in every word, I receive it. I am ready. It is done. Say it again, with the conviction of someone who knows that what they are declaring is real. I receive it. I am ready. It is done. Type done in the comments right now. In this moment. Not when the video ends. Now, while what was declared is still fresh. Because the decree that was sealed in this moment deserves a response in the moment it happened. And there is one specific person in your life who is carrying the same weight you carried. You know who they are. The person you know who sends "I'm good" when they aren't. Who also knows the midnight inventory. Who is also standing, but at a cost that no one else sees. Send this video to them now. Not because you're sharing content, but because heaven moved for you today, and it is moving for them too. And you can be the instrument that delivers this message to where they are. The next video will continue what was started here. Don't miss it. What was open today needs what comes next. You are not the same person you were when this message began. It is finished. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong. If you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.